Don't worry. This young man in front. Honorable members, we should have taken correction of the rules and proceedings and official report. We identified a number of issues, but because of the pressure of time, we are unable to do it today, but we will do it the next sitting, and we definitely make sure that we correct the errors that we've identified. For today, I will, on your behalf, say that I'm extremely privileged to have the presence of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, and Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces in this chamber. His Excellency, the President, is here in accordance with Article 67 of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana to deliver a message on the state of the nation to this honorable House. On behalf of leadership and honorable members of this august House, it is my privilege and singular honor to welcome His Excellency the President of the Republic to the House. Honorable members, the spouse of the Speaker of Parliament, I christened them as the left, right honorable speakers. And she is the person of Madam Alice Ajua Yunus. Privilege to have the presence of the yes, she has been a very bold lady. I can confirm that she's been one of the catalysts that has really brought the issue of women, not only in Ghana but globally. We have the presence of Her Excellency Nana Kunedu Ajiman Rawlings. And we have the presence of the chairman of the party in government, the New Patriotic Party, in the presence here. He was, as you know, a former first Deputy Speaker and also a former second Deputy Speaker, and that used to be called the Elembele Mugabe. He is in the person of Honorable Freddie Blay. And we have the General Secretary of the party in power, the New Patriotic Party, in the person, quite a young man, John Bredu. We have honorable members, my attention has just been drawn that we have with us the whole chief of staff. She used to be in charge of my wives in parliament here, and now she is the chief of staff of the whole country, but I still refer to her as my senior wife. She is in the person of Honorable Akufo-Addo Opare, and we have the General Secretary of the alternative government in the person the National Democratic Congress, the General of all generals. He was a member of this house for 3 good terms and a deputy minister of state. He's in the person of Honorable Johnson Asiedu Inketia. With all this galaxy of important men and women, statesmen, definitely my expectation is that the dignity of this house, the majesty and aura of this house will be enhanced. It's with this, I now have the greatest pleasure in inviting His Excellency the President to deliver his message. Your Excellency, you may now deliver your message.
Mr. Speaker, it is always an honor and a pleasure to be back here where I was a 3-time member to give a message on the state of the nation as required by the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I hope you forgive me if I begin by asking members of the House to salute the management, technical and playing teams of the Black Stars. Who against the odds beat the Super Eagles of Nigeria in Abuja yesterday. Their qualification for the World Cup has brought so much Ghanaians. They were looking forward to an outstanding performance in Qatar. 3 cheers for the Black Stars. accordance with protocol and convention, it is good to see that First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo, Vice President Muhammadu Bawumia, Second Lady Samira Bawumia, spouse of Mr. Speaker, Madam Alisa Ajua Yones, Chief Justice Anini Yabua, and Justices of the Supreme Court, the Chairperson Nana Utu-Sibro II, and members of the Council of State, Chief of Defense Staff, Vice Admiral Seth Amuama, Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufo-Dampare, and service chiefs are all present. The Speaker, the House is also duly honored by the welcome attendance, virtually, of the former President of the Republic, His Excellency John Ajikun Kufuor, former First Lady, Her Excellency Nana Konadu Agyemang-Rawlings, and the Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps. Mr. Speaker, from my vantage point as President of the Republic, from the focus point as head of government, from the enviable position of a husband, a father, and a grandfather, I know that there is a general sense of anxiety in our nation at the moment. The Ghanaian people are anxious about the economy, the cost of living, income levels for young people, and even about issues on which we all thought we had achieved a national consensus. When some amongst us are raising questions about the certainties on which we are building the state, it is not surprising that worries about the stability of the government will become cause for heightened tension in the nation. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago to the day, we were in the midst of a lockdown in the main metropolitan centers of our country. We were truly in the midst of the unknown. It took a while before it even got a name, but a pandemic it was. And the only certainty about it was that nobody knew very much about it. The scientists, the health experts, and the World Health Organization were all united in their view that the virus would cause a lot of devastation. The world before COVID now seems such a long time ago, and the trauma of a world ruled by a pandemic has changed all our perspectives. Back in March 2020, when the first cases of COVID hit our country, we and the rest of the world were in uncharted territory. Fear and sheer terror gripped our land. Probably to future generations, it will look quite obvious what should have been done. But 2 years ago, it felt like we had fallen into a dark, malicious, and terrifying abyss. We could not have been prepared for the catastrophe that hit us. Even the richest economies with the most sophisticated structures were unprepared. Maybe some of us have forgotten what the experts were predicting at the time. Our health and medical infrastructure was woefully inadequate, and we would not be able to cope. There were going to be piles of dead bodies strewn across the streets of Africa. There was a general consensus that we should spend all our energies on resources, on protecting lives. I remember, for example, the discussions about PPEs 2 years ago. Nobody was asking or was interested in how much they cost. Just find them for our health workers. And that was the only consideration. I wonder how many people remember the cost of the first face shields and nose masks that came into our country. I took the decision we would prioritize the savings of lives, and then we would get together to rebuild our economy. Nobody imagined the devastation would be so widespread and last so long. We've had our fair share of COVID deniers and conspiracy theorists, but it is fair to say, Mr. Speaker, that our management of the COVID-19 outbreak has been exemplary and has been so acclaimed by the world. And with the great masses of the Almighty, we have saved lives. Indeed, the total number of deaths we have sadly recorded, 1,445, represents a minuscule fraction of the total number of deaths on the African continent, 0.6%. I remember a year ago, we were in the midst of the second wave of COVID infections and deaths. There was widespread fear. Again, there was consensus. We should concentrate all attention and resources on protecting lives. By that time, a little more was known about the virus, and the anxiety had shifted to the provision of vaccines. We moved rapidly to secure the provisions of vaccines, first for the frontline officials and workers, and those most at risk, and then to the general mass of the population, always relying on the current scientific thinking. We had to learn some very hard lessons, and our belief in the need for self-sufficiency was reinforced when vaccine nationalism was played out blatantly by the rich and powerful countries. Mr. Speaker, the Presidential Vaccine Manufacturing Committee, which I set up to respond to this obvious deficiency, has put in place a comprehensive strategy for domestic vaccine production and the establishment of a National Vaccine Institute to implement the strategy, which will enable us to begin the first phase of commercial production in January 2024. A bill will shortly be brought to you in this House for your support and approval for the establishment of the National Vaccine Institute. This pandemic exposed other shortcomings of our country, which have undoubtedly contributed to the anxieties that have befallen the nation. Agenda 111 was born out of this necessity to address some of these shortcomings. At the normal rate of growth, we are not likely to make up the deficit in our health facilities infrastructure for a very long time. Hence the need for a special dedicated program of infrastructural development. We are undertaking the construction of 101 entities, which comprise standard 100-bed district hospitals for 101 districts without hospitals, with accommodation for doctors and nurses. 6 new regional hospitals for each of the 6 new regions. The rehabilitation of the Efia and Kwanta Hospital in the Western region. 1 new regional hospital for the Western region. And 3 psychiatric hospitals for each of the 3 zones of the country, that is North, Middle, and Coastal. It is an ambitious project which must and will be done, and which will create 3,900 jobs for construction workers, and on completion, some 34,300 jobs for health workers. Mr. Speaker, I have to report, like all major construction projects, it is evident that the initial schedule we gave for the completion of Agenda 111 was overly ambitious. Identifying suitable sites around the country, for example, has turned out to be even more problematic than had been anticipated. I am now able to say that a great deal of the preparatory work has now been completed, and work has started at 87 of the 111 sites. I've been assured that preliminary work on the remaining 24 sites is ongoing. We have every intention of seeing this project through to a successful end, which will enable me to commission all 111 hospitals before I leave office on 7th January 2025. Mr. Speaker, we have saved lives and fared much better than we had feared and the experts predicted. But the consequences of lockdowns, border and business closures, and unplanned expenditures have combined to have a devastating impact on our economy. The unplanned expenditures included, but were not limited to, the recruitment on a permanent basis of 58,121 healthcare professionals and the payment of extra incentives to our frontline health workers. It took an unbudgeted 1.9 billion cedis to ensure that our children and teaching staff went back and stayed in school safely. Some, including regrettably a few in this honorable House, went as far as to accuse the government of trying to kill Ghanaian children when we introduced the controlled school reopenings. I might add here that in some countries, school closures have lasted for 20 months and children are only now going back to school. Our children did not lose a single academic year. We provided nearly 5 million households and over 10 million people with electricity and water subsidies at the time they were most needed. In all, data from the Ministry of Finance tells us that an amount of 17.7 billion cedis, 4.6% of GDP, has been spent in containing the pandemic since 2020. Mr. Speaker, the NPP government came into office with a plan to build a resilient economy and set us on the path to prosperity. We were on course, and our performance between 2017 and the beginning of 2020 demonstrates we were making rapid progress. Indeed, in 2017, 2018, and 2019, we recorded average annual GDP growth rates of 7%, making us one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We grew the economy from the CD equivalent of 54 billion United States dollars at the end of 2016 to the CD equivalent of 72 billion United States dollars in 2020, a 33% increase. Then COVID arrived. This is not something that anyone could have planned for, and the consequences are there for us all to see around the world. The big and established economies of the world have been knocked off their planned trajectory. Countries where budget deficits were unknown and prohibited by law suddenly had to accept huge deficits to underwrite social cohesion. The economic devastation of COVID has since the beginning of this year been further aggravated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has worsened the economic outlook in the entire world. We in Ghana have not escaped this development, and the consequences are being felt in rising living costs at our markets and at fuel stations. The terrible events in Ukraine have a direct impact on our lives here in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, 30% of our wheat flour and fertilizer imports come from Russia. 60% of iron rods and other metal sheets are imported from the Ukraine. And almost 20% of Ghana's manganese is shipped to the Ukraine. The bombs might be dropping on cities half a world away, but they are hitting our pockets here in Ghana. Even so, we have managed to ensure that fuel supplies have not been disrupted, unlike in several other parts of the world. Last week, the Minister for Finance spelled out in country the economic and fiscal deficit difficulties we face, and the raft of measures we are introducing to bring relief and restore us to economic growth. The measures that have been announced by the Minister for Finance are meant to demonstrate that we are aware that we are in difficult times and we are addressing the situation. The belt-tightening measures being set for members of the executive have been elaborated within this context. And I'm hoping that you're going to join us in this undertaking. This government remains alive to its responsibilities to the Ghanaian people. The difficulties of the time notwithstanding, we intend to continue to grow this economy and bring prosperity. That will only happen when we continue to invest in the future. Our children will continue to be educated and be equipped to run a modern and digitalized economy. The free SHS and free TVET are the best vehicles we have devised to take us to the realization of our goal of an educated and skilled workforce. The computerized school placement system is currently ongoing, and the latest batch of JHS students will soon embark on their free SHS and free TVET education. The TVET institutions are being upgraded and equipped to enable them train the increased numbers of children that we want to be attracted to that sector to meet the modern needs of our economy. This year, I'll be commissioning some of the 34 refurbished National Vocational and Technical Institutes, NVTIs, across the country. The refurbishment comprises the construction, rehabilitation and equipment of laboratories, workshops, additional classrooms, hostel and administrative offices. Within the next few months, the construction of 5 technical colleges will begin in various parts of the country. 3 technical institutes will be upgraded to tertiary status. The initial phase for the construction of 9 TVET campuses will commence next month in Bosumtwe, Achimewisa, Boakon, Kenyase, Patuda, Dambai, Larabanga, Guabuliga, and Tolibri. These campuses will have academic facilities, workshops, laboratories, hostels, and staff accommodation, and provide access for training. Government is in the process of securing financing for the construction of 5 STEM universities in 5 new regions, that is Western North, Savannah, Northeast, Ahafo, and Uti regions. Steps are being taken to turn the planned Bunso campus of the University of Environment and Sustainable Development into a standalone independent university focused on the study of engineering. Construction of this campus is set to begin within the next 3 months. Mr. Speaker, the resource for our people in the creative arts, fashion, and film industry. We want to unleash the creativity, enterprise, and innovation of our youth by giving them education and skills training in the creative arts. The Creative Arts Senior High School in Kwadaso in Kumasi, whose construction is currently 70% complete, will serve as a beacon for many young and talented people seeking a fulfilling career in this field. Mr. Speaker, I recall with nostalgia the end of year 2019, just before the onset of COVID, when the world came to Ghana in that December to remember. And we were the happy place to be at the end of our year of return. Ghana continues to lead the push for African renaissance through the decade-long Beyond the Return project. The December in Ghana component of this project has positioned Ghana as the destination to visit every December. Last year, the country recorded some 623,523 visitors, up from the 55,108 visitors the year before, signifying a marked rebound of our tourism sector. We should recapture those glorious moments and build on them as we work hard to reclaim what we lost to the COVID years. Government is therefore undertaking a comprehensive renovation and modernization of tourist attractions across the country, such as the Cape Coast and Elmina castles, Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, which will enable us to position Ghana as the preferred tourism destination in West Africa. Mr. Speaker, government is determined to make our country the place where hard work pays good dividends. We made substantial investments in the agriculture sector. For example, because we recognize this substantial number of our people make a living. The successes of the program for Planting for Food and Jobs have transformed the lives of many farmers around the country. I'm glad to announce that the Tono irrigation dam has been fully rehabilitated and is back to life and fully operational, and is serving the needs of many farmers in the areas around them. The result of significant investment by my government in the Ghana Commercial Agriculture Project has resulted in the availability of a total of 13,190 hectares of additional irrigable land through the rehabilitation of Tono, Pong, Left Bank, and Pong irrigation schemes for rice and vegetable cultivation. Immediate benefits arising from the scheme include improved rice yields, increasing from 4.5 tons per hectare to 5.5 tons per hectare, leading to increased production and growth in farm incomes. This has benefited some 14,264 smallholder beneficiaries directly, creating some 40,000 jobs along several value chain activities generated from the irrigation schemes. In particular, at the Pong Left Bank irrigation project, government through the Ministry of Food and Agriculture has recently engaged 9 large-scale investors in addition to smallholder farmers at the Pong Left irrigation project, who will be producing rice, maize, and vegetables on 1,300 hectares, using modern production technologies to achieve improved productivity and production within the next 3 months. Government has also invested in the vegetable sector through the Ghana Peri-Urban Vegetable Value Chain Project. We provided irrigation infrastructure covering a total of 541 hectares, which directly impacts vegetable farmers in the greater Accra region. In addition to these farmers, we've also provided inputs and technical support to vegetable farmers at Hikpo in the Volta region and Asokwa in the Ashanti region. The project has provided options for both domestic and international markets. The construction of 80 warehouses with a combined storage capacity of 80,000 metric tons has been completed, and their entry into the food production chain is offering better protection to the harvests of farmers. There is no doubt that for the vigorous interventions we have made in agriculture in the past 5 years, which have made us more self-reliant in our food needs, our country would have been at much greater risk as the fallout from the dramatic worldwide increases in freight charges hit prices in our markets and on our supermarket shelves. Mr. Speaker, the cocoa industry has marked a lasting and far-reaching achievements this past year, including producing 1,047,385 tons, the highest ever recorded in Ghana's history. Together with our counterparts in Côte d'Ivoire, we have addressed the inequalities in the international marketing system of cocoa by paying a living income differential of $400 United States per ton of cocoa to our farmers. This is a remarkable initiative that cushions the income of the Ghanaian cocoa farmer, the backbone of our economy. I want to draw attention to one other innovation in the industry that appears to be a small item. A non-adjustable electronic weighing scale has been introduced for the purchase of cocoa from our cocoa farmers. This scale, which was introduced at the start of the cocoa season in October, has been approved by the Ghana Standards Authority. It cannot be tampered with by purchasers. Not many people outside the cocoa industry will realize the significance of the introduction of this little bit of technology. But it brings to an end one of the main sources of distrust between cocoa farmers and officialdom. The age-old belief and suspicion that cocoa farmers are being cheated by tampering with the weighing machines has come to an end. The same use of technology to attract more young people into agriculture is continuing with the training of 537 youth in the production of high-value vegetables using greenhouse technology. 190 of them have been on an 11-month internship in Israel, and they are back with a lot of enthusiasm. We are expecting great things from them. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, we are expecting things from the greater use of technology and the digitalization of our economy as a whole. I'm happy to report that the National Identification Card, the Ghana Card, has finally been integrated into our everyday lives as a cradle-to-grave necessity. Never again will it be that someone born in this country will live a full life, die and be buried without any record of his or her existence. The operations of the birth and death registry are finally being digitized to make sure the documents issued from that department are accorded the respect they should have. Every child born in this country will be registered, and the date of birth registered will remain your date of birth throughout your life. Mr. Speaker, there will be no school age. no football age, no SNCC age, and no official age. When we register for National Health Insurance, the details of our identification will be the same as the details on a driving license, a passport, and yes, on our tax identification number. Today, we all have addresses at which we can be identified, even if we live, unfortunately for the time being, in a chaos. And when we die, that inevitable rite of passage will be recorded to mark the end of our life. Mr. Speaker, it is not enough that the state collects all this information. It is critical that every citizen is able to benefit from the digitization process. The benefits range from being able to give directions to our addresses for deliverers and being able to gain access to government services without having to go to the ministries. The Rural Telephony Project, being undertaken by GIFEC, is working to fill the void created by the telephone operators' inability or unwillingness to extend their services to areas they deem uneconomical to operate. It is important to extend basic telephone, voice, and data connectivity to every part of the country so we leave no one behind. Mr. Speaker, I've spoken on other occasions about the digitization of port operations, or what we now call the paperless port. I'm glad to say that the initial problems have been largely overcome, and we're witnessing the advantages in faster processes at the port and less opportunities for corruption, the reduction of human interface. ICOMS, when it was introduced, provoked a lot of controversy. At the moment, we are seeing the benefits. Indeed, customs revenue, prior to the implementation of ICOMS, for the period June 19 to May 20, stood at 11.5 billion cedis. Between June 2020, the start of ICOMS, and May 2021, teething challenges, ill-considered propaganda, and the impact of COVID-19 on global trade notwithstanding, customs revenue has increased by 27.6% to 14.36 billion cedis. Indeed, customs revenue for 2021 stood at 16.8 billion cedis, as opposed to 20.3 billion cedis in 2019, when ICOMS had not been implemented. The digitization of hospital records has started through the Lightwave Health Information Management System. We started with the teaching hospitals, and we plan to work in a phased approach to cover every health facility in Ghana. I'm sure this will be a welcome innovation for all. We have learned the very hard way. The first step to prosperity in Africa is for our countries to trade among each other. It is the reason we campaign for and supported and proudly host the Continental Office of the AFCFTA. Trading under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement officially commenced on 1st January 2021, and Ghana was the first country in Africa to establish custom procedure codes to facilitate trading under the AFCFTA. We've established a national AFCFTA coordination office to facilitate activities. We have high hopes that the AFCFTA office, which we proudly host, will bring urgency to growing trade amongst the African states. Possibly, and probably, the most significant steps towards making this African trade possible was taken in Accra a few weeks ago with the launch of PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. This is a leading-edge technology connecting African banks, payment service providers, and other financial market intermediaries to enable instant and secure payments between African countries. It means a trader in Ghana can order supplies in Kenya with cedis and buy it in Kenyan shillings and not have to go through dollars or euros or pounds sterling. This will simplify the historical complexities and costs of making payments across African borders and provide operational efficiencies to open up vast economic opportunities for all stakeholders. It means we have a simplified process that reduces the costs and complexities of foreign exchange for cross-border transactions between African markets and enables innovation in cross-border trade and access to new African markets. Mr. Speaker, if we campaign so hard for the opening up of trading among African states, we had better have something to sell. I'm glad to report that despite the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on firm-level production and productivity, as well as the disruption in global supply chains, the manufacturing subsector showed significant recovery last year. Manufacturing recorded an average growth of 7% in the first half of 2021, compared to 0.7% in the corresponding period in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. Our flagship One District, One Factory initiative is being implemented with business promoters being empowered and supported to establish new factories or to transform existing manufacturing enterprises to contribute significantly to job creation across the country. Mr. Speaker, through the 1D1F initiative, the Made in Ghana label is being stamped on a wide range of products proudly manufactured in Ghana. Out of a total of 278 1D1F projects at various stages of implementation in all the 16 regions, 106 factories are currently operational. 148 are under construction, while 24 projects are at mobilization stage. Mr. Speaker, in order to bring the youth on board the 1D1F program, 58 out of the 278 1D1F projects have been developed as enterprises fully owned by youth groups with direct government support. Each of these 1D1F youth companies are owned by between 40 and 50 youth as shareholders. In addition, 5 medium-scale state-of-the-art agro-processing common user facilities have been established with direct support from government and are owned by various groups of farmers whose farming operations have previously been undermined through lack of processing facilities. These farmer-owned companies have been established in 5 districts, namely Doma West, Savalugu, Sefia Kontombra, Setra Central, and Takwa in Swayem. They cover oil processing, rice milling, and the processing of maize into maize grits. Mr. Speaker, quite a number of global vehicle manufacturing companies have set up assembly plants here in our country and started producing vehicles for our market and for the West African market. The well-defined Ghana Automotive Development Policy we outdoored in August 2019 has facilitated this welcome development. Since June 2021, Toyota and Suzuki brands of vehicles are being produced here, commencing with the production of Hilux, pickup, and Swift models. VW, Volkswagen, and Sinotruk, which commenced commercial operations in 2020, have continued to assemble their brands of vehicles and are enjoying significant local patronage. In addition, a new state-of-the-art site with capacity to assemble 5,000 new vehicles per annum has been established by Nissan in Tema, which is currently producing Nissan and Peugeot brands of vehicles for the Ghanaian and West African markets. I will have the pleasure to commission this new plant in Tema tomorrow. 3 other vehicle manufacturers, namely Kia, Hyundai, and Renault, are also expected to commence commercial production this year. Our national iconic automobile brand, the Kantanka brand, produced by Kantanka Automobile Company Limited, also stepped up production of its made-in-Ghana vehicles, which include Nkunimdie SUV, Omama pickup, Onata 4x4 pickup, Otumfor SUV, and K71 small SUV models. Now that the Minister for Finance has announced an embargo on the importation of 4x4 vehicles for official use, I hope the local assembly plants will take full advantage of the opportunity, especially since government is continuing with its policy of giving first priority to locally assembled vehicles in respect of all publicly financed procurement of vehicles. Mr. Speaker, we have proof beyond the education, agriculture, and manufacturing sectors to show that we have been using state revenue to expand infrastructure across other sectors and improve lives. For the first time in our history, we are doing something about the infrastructure needs of the judiciary on a major scale. A courthouse is an essential element of the architecture of a state dedicated to the promotion of the rule of law. And yet, there are large areas of our country that are not served by any court, and people have to travel long distances to access the services of a court. Unfortunately, as the former Chief Justice once put it, the conditions of most of the court facilities around the country where they exist are not fit for purpose. We have thus embarked on a project to provide 100 courthouses and accompanying residences for judges and magistrates around the country. 50 of them are being built and are near completion and should be handed over to the judiciary soon. Mr. Speaker, 121 residential units for the judiciary are also being built across the country. Furthermore, 22 new modern townhouses are being constructed at Denyame in Kumasi to address the accommodation challenges facing Court of Appeal judges assigned to the northern sector. Some of you might remember that work began some 20 years ago on the construction of Law House, a proposed new office accommodation for the Office of Attorney General and Ministry of Justice. A 12-story edifice consisting of 10 floors above ground and 2 stories underground. Work on the project has stopped many years ago. I'm glad to say that not only has the project been resurrected, I'm told it is expected to be completed by the end of this year. Mr. Speaker, whilst on the subject of law enforcement, the passage of the Right to Information Act, the Witness Protection Act, the amendment of the Criminal Offences Act, and other laws have enhanced significantly the capacity of the state in the fight against corruption. It is also an undeniable fact that budgetary allocations for institutions actively engaged in public sector accountability, that is the Office of the Auditor General, the Judiciary, Parliament, and the Ghana Police Service, have witnessed significant increases since I assumed office in 2017. Furthermore, We now have a new special prosecutor who appears to have all the wherewithal necessary to exercise vigorously the prerogatives of his office. Mr. Speaker, it is in the road sector that we have registered the greatest infrastructure achievement. I know that the word unprecedented is often used with careless abandon in our public discourse, but I use it carefully and purposefully. In the 5 years of my government, so far, more roads have been built, improved, and upgraded than at any equivalent period under any government in the history of Ghana. Some 10,885 kilometers of new roads have been constructed in these 5 years. Let me mention, Mr. Speaker, that yesterday it was my honor and great pleasure to have commissioned the Tamale interchange. The first such interchange in the northern sector of our country, which the people of Tamale gladly celebrated. I considered it to be a most satisfying birthday present. We intend to continue with the building of roads around the country to accelerate the opening up of our country. Excuse me. Mr. Speaker, we have kept to our promise and kept the lights on in spite of worldwide upheavals in the energy sector and in spite of the huge legacy debts we inherited. We've almost completed the process of restructuring these debts to reduce their crippling effects on our public expenditure. With the introduction of more bulk supply points in areas such as Kasua and Pokuase, power transmission has improved tremendously in the southwestern and northwestern parts of Greater Accra. Power lines are getting upgraded to reduce commercial and technical losses and increase transmission capacity. Under the National Electrification Scheme, a total of 279 communities have been connected to the national grid. This has increased the national electricity access rate from 85.7% in 2020 to 87.3% as of January 2022. 487 more communities are at various stages of connection and completion. We are on course to achieve our ambition of universal access to electricity by the end of my term as the President of this country. The accommodation problems, Mr. Speaker, facing the military have long been matters of national sadness. I'm glad to say that the first stage of the military housing project, dubbed the Barracks Regeneration Project, has started with construction going on at all garrisons across the country. The military academy at Tessie is being modernized, and we're keeping our armed forces retooled and equipped to enable them to live up to their duties. Each of the different branches of the armed forces, the Army, Navy, and Air Force, has received significant financial assistance to upgrade its logistical bases and strengthen its capabilities, and its welfare requirements are being substantially addressed. We're building modernized armed forces with higher numbers of personnel that will be fit to meet the demands of the 21st century. The protection of our borders puts extra burden on the military especially since there's increased terrorist activity in the region and instability in many of our neighboring countries. 15 forward operating bases, or FOBs as they are called, are being constructed across the country to help in the prevention of cross-border crimes and terrorist activity. Mr. Speaker, I believe we can all testify that our police service is undergoing a great improvement and a change of image before our very eyes. During times of anxiety, we need a responsive police service to boost the confidence of the population, and it is good to see the police rise up to the challenge. Nothing starts people off in a bad mood more than the driving habits and traffic jams that create chaos on our roads and make every road journey a nightmare. Gradually, the police are bringing order to the roads, and we all now know that the law is no respecter of persons or vehicle types. I urge all of us to cooperate with the police to perform their duties to enable all of us go about our lives in peace. I'm happy to state the government has been able to provide much needed modern equipment for the service, and we're tackling their accommodation needs as well. We're constructing 320 housing units at the National Police Training School, which are at an advanced stage of completion. Work is also going on the construction of a huge barracks complex at Kwabenya to replace the one adjacent to the VLA at 37, where the conditions of living are poor. Mr. Speaker, together with the implementation of a number of operational and personal welfare interventions, the morale of police officers has received a considerable boost, and today, public-focused interventions instituted by the Inspector General of Police have resulted in a better police-public relationship. The police service is gradually regaining the trust and confidence of the public under the leadership of its new Inspector General of Police. Mr. Speaker, as I indicated last year would happen, a national dialogue on illegal mining was held under the auspices of the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry in Accra, as well as in two other regional ones in Kumasi and Tamale. If ever the support of all citizens was required to make something work, it is in the battle to end illegal mining and restore our lands and water bodies back to health. We have declared river bodies and forest reserves as red zones for mining. We have suspended the issuance of all prospecting, exploration, and reconnaissance licenses for minerals in forest reserves. Launched Operation Halt 2 to help rid our water bodies and forest reserves of illegal miners. Revamped the community mining scheme as more sustainable and greener safeguards to replace illegal mining. What we need above all is the buy-in of all citizens to recognize that the degradation caused to the lands and water bodies by the illegal mining practices affect each one of us, and which all should take an interest to stop those involved. Let me use this platform to extend again the condolences of the nation to the victims of the Apiache explosion. The response to the disaster by the public and the organs of state was highly commendable. Government responded swiftly in the immediate aftermath of the incident by dispatching a high-powered delegation under the leadership of the Vice President to Apiache. An Apiache Support Fund has been established to spearhead the building of a decent, green, and sustainable community to enable victims of this tragic incident and members of the community get back on their feet and rebuild their lives. As rising out of this incident, government will ensure that the health and safety policies of the mining industries are in accordance with international best practices. Mr. Speaker, the Green Ghana Day last year was a great success, as many people turned out to join in the exercise to plant trees. I urge all of us to continue to take care of what we planted to make sure that the 7 million seeds we planted, i.e. 2 million more than the original target of 5 million, become fully grown trees. And please, join in the Ghana Green Day when it comes along on 10th June, the designated Green Ghana Day for this year, when we seek to plant 20 million trees. That is a 4-fold increase over the 2021 target of 5 million. The Speaker, you will recollect that in my message to Parliament last year, I indicated the government is collaborating with the private sector to establish 14 medical waste treatment facilities and commence the construction of 16 integrated recycling and compositing plants across the country to help address once and for all the safe disposal of medical and municipal solid waste. I'm happy to inform the House that these facilities and plants are at various levels of completion and will be completed by the end of this year. Mr. Speaker, as part of government's Water for All program, several water systems have been initiated and at our various stages of completion. The import of the program is to ensure that each region will benefit from at least one water supply project. Phases 1 and 2 of the Upper East Region Water Supply Project have been completed and will be commissioned soon. Contractors are on site working on the water projects in Ketaa and Sunyani, and preparatory works are ongoing on the Yendi, Damango, Tamale, and Sekandi Takradi water projects. The Speaker, to addressing the housing needs of Ghanaians, government has developed a new affordable housing program, with the state now playing the role of facilitator through the provision of land, infrastructure services, and tax incentives and exemptions to subsidize the cost of construction of the housing units to reduce their prices. In furtherance of this, preparatory works have commenced for the development of 2 designated sites at Pokwasi Amasama in the Greater Accra region and Dedesua in the Ashanti region, which are expected to deliver some 12,000 housing units. The long wait for decent and secure accommodation for public servants at the district levels will soon become a thing of the past. Government, through the State Housing Company Limited, has commenced works on the preparation of the district housing program for the construction of rental housing units at the district level for public servants. The pilot phase will be implemented in 16 districts across the 16 regions of the country. That notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, government continues the completion of the existing affordable housing projects to increase access to secure, safe, adequate, and affordable housing units across the country. Tema Development Corporation, TDC, for example, has continued with the construction of the Pearl Affordable Housing Project, which involves the construction of 3,016 housing units. The project is currently 30% complete. Mr. Speaker, work is progressing on the Coastal Protection Program of government, whose aim is to improve the resilience of the country's coastline against tidal wave erosion, whilst protecting lives, livelihood, and properties of the people living across the coast. Accordingly, the Dansoma, Axema, Manfu, Kuma, Anomabo, and Elmina Phase 3 coastal protection projects are currently at 98%, 100%, 65%, and 80% respectively. Other coastal protection projects are currently ongoing at Cape Coast, 72% complete, Discove, 38% complete, Commander, 85% complete, Abrazi Phase 2, 30%, and Mingo Pram Pram, 44%. In the medium term, government will commence works at Blekusu, Apam, Axim, La, and Teshi, Dansoman, Shaman, Mingo Pram Pram, Temenu Town, and Moga, and Takrady. Mr. Speaker, government's commitment to constructing a modern railway network in our country is gradually bearing fruit. The construction of the 22-kilometer section of the Western Railway line on a new standard gauge from Kujokrom to Manso, which commenced in 2018, is on schedule to be completed before the end of this year. Ahead of its completion, government has secured the needed funding to continue the Western Railway Development Project for an additional 78 kilometers from Manso to Huni Valley. The project will also include the conversion of the dual gauge tracks between Takrady and Kujokrom from narrow gauge to standard gauge. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to this House for considering and approving a commercial contract and a facility agreement of some 439 million euros to finance the development of another section of the Western Line from Idiadin to Obuasi, covering a distance of 51 kilometers. A lot more attention will be paid this year towards securing additional resources to complete the development of the Western Line from Awaso to link with the bauxite deposits at Ninehi, which will facilitate the development of the Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation GIADEC project. Mr. Speaker, potentially one of the most decisive interventions of the 2022 budget has been the Youth Start program, which has been established to encourage the development of entrepreneurship amongst the youth. Coupled with an even greater systematic support for the private sector, which will be a priority of my second term, it represents a major pathway for the economic growth and transformation of our country and for the solution of unemployment. Mr. Speaker, I cannot purport to speak about the state of the nation without addressing some critical governance issues that have featured in recent public discussions. Certain elements have attempted to advocate coup d'etats as the answer to the problems of the nation. We came through a long and tortuous journey to arrive at today's consensus on a multi-party democracy. But the last 29 years of our Fourth Republic have shown that this has been the most productive period since our independence. Both the major political parties of the country, the New Patriotic Party, NPP, and the National Democratic Congress, NDC, have made positive contributions to this development. There's work to be done on building our institutions, but our democracy is worth fighting for. It is up to us to find a way to accommodate each other and our differences to make things work for the benefit of the Ghanaian people. Mr. Speaker, it might also be well that coup d'etats have re-entered our discourse because of the turmoil in our neighborhood. The West African region is suddenly back in the international news headlines for all the wrong reasons. We're back again as the region of political instability and the place for coups. Long and bitter experience led ECOWAS to its current stance of zero intolerance for military coups. We in Ghana know the cost of instability. It leads to the exodus of our artisans and professionals and the emptying of teachers from our schools. Speaker, today, at every traffic light junction in our big towns and cities, you can see the results of instability in our neighborhood with the influx of refugees into our country. We should be unapologetic about campaigning for stable democratic governments in our region. We do not want to be an island of peace and stability in a region of turmoil. We do not aspire to be prosperous in the midst of want and poverty. We want a stable and prosperous Ghana in a stable and prosperous region. We should use our chairmanship and membership of ECOWAS, our membership of the African Union, our membership of the Commonwealth, our membership of La Francophonie, and our position as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council to advance these goals. Mr. Speaker, taking into consideration the fact that COVID infection numbers have fallen dramatically, and on the advice of the National COVID Task Force, and announced on Sunday, 27th March, in the 28th update of the Fellow Ghanaians series, the lifting of most of the restrictions that we have had to endure for the past 2 years. As the health experts have advised, I hope we shall continue with some of the measures, like the washing of hands and the enhanced hygiene protocols that have served us so well, even though they are no longer mandatory. I'm sure we're all very relieved that the wearing of masks is no longer mandatory and we can hug our loved ones. With the lifting of the COVID restrictions, I'm looking forward to renewed energy and enthusiasm as all workplaces reopen at full capacity. Mr. Speaker, despite the protracted and sometimes acrimonious nature of proceedings, I'm happy that the House has finally found it possible to pass the e-levy bill. I believe strongly the levy is going to make a significant contribution to revenue mobilization and the management of the national economy. And I want to thank members of the House for making this possible. Mr. Speaker, there are many problems that we have to overcome to get back to where we ought to be. I need your support. No president, no parliament, no government can undertake this task all by themselves. We need all Ghanaians to pull and push together. The road to recovery will be long and hard, but we have started on a good footing by accepting that we are in a difficult place and are taking the difficult decisions that will get us out. If anyone had ever had any doubts about the need for self-reliance, the point has now been forcibly drilled home to us. The pursuit of the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda is even more compelling now. I have no doubts whatever, Mr. Speaker, that we have it in us to build the Ghana of our dreams. I saw the spirit of togetherness and the willingness to help each other when COVID struck. We looked out for each other. I saw the sense of enterprise and innovation of the Ghanaian. I saw our manufacturers quickly adapt their plans to produce sanitizers, and our tailors equally quickly displayed the innovation they had always been known for by turning face masks into fashion items. We are first-class health professionals, and they came into their own during the crisis, and we're providing the infrastructure to enhance the quality of their work. We are first-class teachers. They showed it when the pandemic struck and kept our children firmly to their books. The self-confidence of the Ghanaian is well-rooted. Let us, more than ever, hold up our heads high and face the future with courage, hope, and assurance. Let us recall our age-old Ghanaian values of hard work, enterprise, solidarity, dignity, and hospitality. Look around you, believe in Ghana, and be inspired by Ghana. We will bounce back together. The battle is the Lord's. May God bless us all in our homeland, Ghana, and make her great and strong. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your attention.
Honorable members, we have heard His Excellency the President. We've also heard the concerns that some of you have raised, and His Excellency has responded to it. I, on behalf of all of you, in accordance with Standing Order 58, wish to convey to His Excellency the President the gratitude of the House. Honorable members, again, in accordance with the practice of this House, a formal communication will be forwarded to His Excellency the President after the House has thoroughly debated this message on the state of the nation. With this, and looking at the time of the day, I want to give the opportunity to the leadership of the House to, if there is any indication of where we proceed from here. In other words, it is still within their ambit to move or not to move for the adjournment of this House. And I will start by giving the opportunity to the Majority Leader. Majority Leader, I talked about adjournment.
The Speaker, as you indicated, we've just listened to the President deliver the message on the state of the nation. It lasted for 1 hour, 8 minutes. Speaker, given the exigencies of times, it's intended for us to begin the debate on the message tomorrow. And I guess we'll push ourselves to possibly Saturday or so.
Honorable members,
I chose my words advisedly. I said possibly Saturday. The Speaker, if we cannot conclude,
honorable members,
possibly, we'll take it to next week at a day that the business committee shall appoint. Mr. Speaker, so in that regard, I want to move that this House takes an adjournment to reconvene tomorrow at 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock in the forum. Speaker, I believe, as the President has shared with us, we stand united and in a very transparent and reconciliatory and the Speaker very transparent and in a patriotic manner debate the statement and move forward as a nation. Mr. Speaker, I thank you and I shall move. Just a second.
Honorable members, the motion for adjournment has been moved. Any seconder? Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we have heard His Excellency President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. We expected him to deliver the true state of the nation address, which will reflect the growing hardships and suffering of the Ghanaian people. Regrettably, Mr. Speaker, he himself today does not have the confidence even to talk about the economy, the state of the Ghanaian economy. He is continuing with his promises and slogans. But Mr. Speaker, a constitutional imperative. We are prepared and ready to debate them and to prove a credible alternative led by John Dramani Mahama. So, Mr. Speaker, so with the present willfully downplaying the harshing reality, I beg to second the motion for adjournment.
Honorable members, order. Honorable members, I can only enjoy the nostalgia of being a majority leader and a minority leader. I enjoy the privileges of both. With this, I put the question. Those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Those against, say no. Honorable members, I put the question again. Those in favor of adjournment of sitting to tomorrow, say aye. Those against, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The House is accordingly adjourned till Thursday, 31st March 2022 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. The House is adjourned.